As a GM, I want to build a rich and engaging combat encounter. I want my players to feel the thrill of battle, but also have some tension. But let's be honest, no one really wants an unexpected TPK, and sometimes finding the right balance can feel overwhelming. In other systems like Dungeons & Dragons, they rely on concepts like challenge rating or CR. In Daggerheart, however, we use battle points, a kind of more streamlined, intuitive system to craft encounters that are both interesting and challenging for your players.
Welcome to Bladebound Saga.
So what are battle points? Battle points are a tool in Daggerheart that are essentially core to encounter balancing. So rather than getting lost in a spreadsheet of stats, all you do is calculate a fairly simple budget based on the number of PCs in combat, and then adjust on some other factors that kind of fine-tune the difficulty based on what you want. So the formula is very straightforward. For every PC that you have, you multiply that by 3 and add +2. So if you had a party of 3, that gives you 11. 3 times 3, 9, +2, 11. But for a larger party of 5, or even 6, but for 5, you'd get 17. So easy, 5 times 3, +2, 17. A greater encounter. This system kind of allows you to be more adaptive when it comes to building encounters and kind of become a little bit more dynamic based on your group's capabilities while making things easy to manage, especially if you're doing something on the fly. So before we jump into how to spend battle points, I do want to talk about a couple things in Daggerheart that are a little different, most notably how we label adversaries. So in other systems, they might label it by the type of creature. You have dragon-type creatures, demons, you then have angels, normal humanoids. In Daggerheart, they label it by the archetype a creature might go. For instance, one of them would be a bruiser, so kind of a tough, more powerful enemy built to take hits while dealing a good amount of damage. You then have Horde, which is a group of creatures that are kind of acting together as a unit. So think something very similar to a zombie horde, but it could also be a nest of spiders. It could be something like a choir of angels, but basically perfect for swarming large groups. It could even be an army fighting into battle. Then you have minions. Minions are more weak, but fairly dangerous in numbers. So you can have a lot of minions, but the nice thing about Daggerheart is you can then rely on hordes if it's for strictly large numbers, but for minions, they're kind of great for filling out the encounters. Then you have range. So these are more fragile creatures that are pretty deadly at a distance, and they deal a lot of damage while mostly staying out of reach. You then have Skulk. Skulk are kind of more sneaky, rogue-type, opportunistic individuals who are kind of looking for the vulnerabilities in your party. You then have Social, which is primarily designed for people who are non-combat, though you could have them in combat. Then there are the standards. So these are, for the most part, your bread and butter. So think of them like the soldier. So kind of rank and file members. You have the supports, who are adversaries that, rather than dealing damage, they're more there to buff the allies or the other adversaries or disrupt the party themselves. And then you have 2 creatures. There's one that's a leader. So this would be something like a lieutenant, someone who might summon creatures. It could be a summoner, but kind of could be ahead of an adversarial encounter. And then you also have Solo. Solo is meant to be a single creature that is challenging or formidable enough to face the entire party on their own, oftentimes without support. Now, with these archetypes in mind, you can design encounters to feel more narrative while also relying on those really quick archetypes to help you mechanically engage. So you have the Skulkers, you might even have a Solo. There's a lot of different ways that you could attack your players. So now that we understand the adversary types, let's talk about how we spend them. So based off of the GM screen and some of the screenshots that we got from the Beast Feast open panel, we know that 1 point is primarily for minions or 1 support adversary. You then spend 2 points for 1 standard unit, 1 ranged unit, a Skulk, or a Horde. You then spend 3 points for a leader. You spend 4 points for a bruiser, and then 5 points for a Solo. So, for example, if we were preparing for a party of 4 PCs, your budget is 14. You could spend it with, let's take a look at a tier 1 example. You could spend 4 points on 2 Jagged Knife Bandits. They're both standard units, so 2 points each. You could then spend 3 points on a Jagged Knife Lieutenant, you having 1 leader with 3 points. And then say there's a large, and the kind of centerpiece of the fight being a patchwork zombie Hulk. So this large creature at 5 points. And then you have an extra 2 points left over, so why not throw in a couple minions? So 1 point per each group. These minions can be kind of, the nice thing about Daggerheart is you can label them as 2 minions here or 4 minions, a small group of minions like a mini horde. And basically in one fall swoop, your characters can jump up into the fray, distributing damage to all of the minions in the area. So this encounter kind of makes it where you're centered around the one ally, but then you have a couple other small things around to help it narratively. Maybe they take out the zombie Hulk, and in this fight, the lieutenant is the one in charge that you end up capturing and questioning later on. Or maybe they capture one of the bandits. Who knows? Another example that you could have, maybe at a higher encounter, we'll just kind of even throw some random NPCs and adversaries into this. So let's say for a party of 5. This brings our budget now up to 17. You could probably do it on, say, we use 6 points on an elite soldier. They're both standards, 2 points each, very similar. You then spend 5 points on a flicker fly, which is essentially an insectoid creature, labeled as a solo. You can then spend another 2 points on a bruiser. Well, you know what? Why not throw 2? Maybe you have, outside of the elite soldiers, you have Knights of the Realm. So these adversaries are both labeled as bruisers. And then with 2 points left, say we just throw in an archer squadron. So a couple of individuals that are coming to support up on the ramparts that can be easily taken care of if dealt with by the party. You can throw kind of random things. Maybe there is multi-point of combat where it's these soldiers trying to subdue a flicker fly in this specific place. Or maybe they are controlling a creature, the beast, and using the flicker fly stat block as some sort of giant griffin. You can always reflavor things in Daggerheart, which is a really nice thing about the system, and then just taking the stat blocks and using it in place. And so with this kind of combat encounter, we kind of know that if we want to throw something at our players that'll be kind of engaging, generally using these stat blocks and these archetypes to help guide you in your points is a lot easier of just flipping the book, finding something that's really interesting, and then building an encounter based on it. If you need to tweak the challenge rating, you can always adjust the battle points by one of 4 ways that the GM screen and what we know of some screenshots state. So you can subtract the point if you want a shorter fight. You can subtract multiple points if you would like a shorter fight. If you just simply want them to encounter 3 soldiers, you can easily throw that at them. If you just want them to fight someone and then knock a couple soldiers down and then question the other one. If that's the intent that you have, that's totally doable. You don't have to use all your points. You also want to subtract 2 points if you are doing a battle with 2 or more solo adversaries. Say you have 2 twin demons fighting, you'll want to subtract 2 points, bringing those 2 solo monsters to the fight. But then you'll want to add a point for adversaries that you're using from a lower tier. So say you are in tier 3. And you want to use a creature from tier 1, you would add an additional point because a tier 1 is basically going to be a minion for a creature. And then if you really want a high stake combat, if you want to hit that BBEG last fight of the campaign, you're going to add 2 points for something that's dangerous or something high stakes. So the beauty of battle points is how it encourages creativity while also being fairly quick to bring the specific story aspects into a combat encounter. So if you want an ambush, pair some Skulker with minions, and now you know how many minions you need to fill into the fight, or how many Skulker units you need to fill in. If you want a narrative climactic boss fight, combine a solo adversary, say with some support heroes. And if you really want an encounter fight, increase the battle points that you're using, and that way you know how to go into a combat without really feeling like the boss falls flat, or accidentally putting too much and killing your party. So that being said, always keep your players in mind when you're designing these encounters. Battle points gives you tools to tailor combat to their abilities and keep them on their toes, but start with the basics. As you grow and become more comfortable with your group, as a GM in this system, feel free to experiment, make adjustments. The key is to create a memorable and engaging battle without overcomplicating the process too much. At the end of the day, it's all about making the story come alive, so essentially grab your battle points and start building your next Daggerheart counter. So that being said, if you want to see more content on Daggerheart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I want to know what crazy encounters you have made in the Daggerheart system, or feel free to ask me some questions. Don't forget to join our Discord as well, as we're always discussing on our Discord various different topics on Daggerheart and other tabletop RPGs. And until the next time, I will see you later.
From ink and steel, stories are forged. We are Blade-bound Saga.